My name is Kay Lowell. I am a holistic health educator and practitioner, and I own Spiritual Health and Wellness Center, which is located in San Antonio, Texas. I teach people to use safe, natural, non-invasive techniques for themselves and others, and they're very easy to learn how to do. And these techniques help reduce stress and increase your sense of well-being and help increase your personal development. I specifically focus on Gendai Reiki, reflexology for both the hands and the feet, and acupressure. I've been a practitioner since 2005 and a teacher since 2008. I'm licensed through the Pastoral Medical Association, and I'm an approved provider for continuing education hours through the NCBTMB. And I'm also a member of the Holistic Chamber of Commerce, the International Association of Reiki Professionals, and the International Center for Reiki Training. Well, some of you may be asking, Reiki? What is that? Never heard of it. Or in some cases, I've kind of heard about it, but I really don't know what it is. Well, this picture illustrates what it isn't. Reiki does not involve gardening tools like a rake, or anybody using a rake during a session. The Reiki method is a system utilizing symbols, hand positions, and sounds to create sacred space and connection to the divine, or God, or universal spirit. The Reiki method was rediscovered in 1922 by sensei, or teacher, Mikao Usui, and we're going to be going into the history of Reiki a little bit later into the presentation. The kanji, or the symbols which represent Reiki, is the one pictured here on the right, and the top kanji means spirit or universal, and the bottom kanji means energy. So it's roughly translated into spirit energy. And the National Institutes of Health classifies Reiki as a form of complementary and alternative medicine, and it's considered safe, natural, non-invasive, and relaxing. And there are many research studies being done with Reiki, and you can, of course, get on the NIH's website to check out that information. What Reiki method isn't? It doesn't cause harm, it doesn't deplete your own energy, and it is not a religion. So, everything is made up of energy, from the smallest particle, which the human eye cannot even detect, like a living cell or our genetic makeup, to crystals that, are found in watches and clocks, or to us as human beings. We can obviously measure energy, even though we can't see it. So, for example, you have the EKG, which measures heart waves, and the first picture represents an EKG. The EEG, which represents brain waves, and the middle picture represents that. And the last picture represents Kirlian photography, which you can look at the human energy field, or the aura, radio waves, and TV waves. And even though we can't see them, radio and TV frequencies exist, and the only way we can access them is by turning that dial or channel, clicking the remote to that right channel, and then we can hear our favorite radio station, even though nobody listens to the radio anymore. Or we can see our favorite TV show. So, Henry Ford said, if you think you can, then you can. If you think you can't, then you can't. Even our own thoughts, values, and belief systems are examples of energy. What we think and how we feel about ourselves and others can affect our health in either a positive or negative way. Our bodies are antennas, and we unconsciously and subconsciously receive information from our environment. That's why to create a state of health and balance, it's very important to watch your diet of what you listen to, either via through sound, through music, or what you're watching on TV. Our bodies are absolutely wonderful creations. They take a licking and they keep on a ticking. And me personally, as a child, I was always fascinated by how our bodies could just heal themselves. I was a pretty active kid, and I was constantly scraping my knee or my elbow or some other part of my body. And yet, even though I had bruises and cuts, my skin always managed to heal itself. How did my body know how to do that? Well, even today, the answer is still not definitively known. But scientists believe that an organized energy system resides inside of our bodies. And it's that system within each organ, each cell, each atom. That information is transferred and communicated on those energy waves. And that the heart is the master regulator and entrains the rest of the body to act as one unit. Anything that can realign that energy communication is considered a form of energy medicine. So there are many different forms of energy healing in medicine, but the basic idea behind each method is our ability to change that frequency of our energy to enhance our health. Things like Qigong, Tai Chi, acupressure, Reiki, color therapy, sound therapy, crystal therapy, and aromatherapy are all examples of energy healing. And that is me doing energy on a student at a health fair at St. Mary's College here in San Antonio. One note, not all forms of energy healing utilize spiritually guided life energy, but Reiki does. So learning Reiki is very easy. It's not completed simply by reading a book or just sitting, using symbols and chants or waving your magic wand. With Reiki, the energy is passed from teacher to student, and the student is attuned or realigned to the God consciousness frequency. So the example again is like a radio. We all have access to that divine. Even though we can't see it, we know that it exists. We just have to know which channel to set and then connect to that frequency. So a Reiki practitioner becomes a conduit or a funnel or a pipe for that God consciousness to flow through. Integral to the Reiki method experience is the practitioner's commitment to personal development and spiritual growth. And one of the tools used in the Reiki method is focusing on the 5 principles, or the Gokai. And this is recited twice a day, once in the morning and once at night. And the idea is that by staying in the present or the now, like Eckhart Tolle says, and by purifying our hearts, spirits, and minds, we can achieve personal and spiritual growth. So the Gokai is, just for today, Kyo dake wa, release anger. Okurona, release worry. Shinpai suna, be grateful and show appreciation. Kansha shite, work diligently. Gyo hageme, be kind to yourself and others. Hito ni shinshitsu ni. And, as I mentioned before, Reiki is very easy to learn. And depending on, what style of Reiki you teach or even you take, or even what your teacher, how your teacher follows it, there are either 3 or 4 levels of Reiki training. And what's provided in the Reiki training varies. So if you're looking at taking a Reiki class, then it is in your best interest to, find out what you can about the teacher, find out what their education is, where they got their certificates from, and what, they actually offer in their courses. So the first level, since I teach Gendai Reiki and I focus more on the Japanese techniques, the first level is called Shoden, or the entrance. The second level is Okuden, or inner teachings, and that's level 2. The Shimpiden, or the mystery level, is level 3. And you don't generally become a teacher unless you really feel called to teach Reiki, and that's the Goiku Gaiden level 4, and that's the teacher level. And as I mentioned earlier, Reiki was rediscovered by Sensei Mikao Usui. Sensei means teacher, and Sensei Usui is the gentleman's picture on the far left. And he rediscovered this in 1922. And Sensei Usui taught many students, but Western style Reiki comes through Dr. Chujiro Hayashi, who is the picture of the gentleman in the middle, who was a Japanese naval officer and a medical doctor. And then Sensei Hayashi then taught Mrs. Takada, the picture of the lady, who was a Japanese American born on the island of Hawaii. And she is credited with westernizing Reiki and making some of the changes that have now become standard in Western Reiki. Mrs. Takada brought Reiki to the mainland in 1970, and she initiated 22 masters before her death in 1980. And this is my information. I already introduced myself earlier, but if you'd like more information, you can contact me several ways. You can either call me on the phone, you can email me. I realize that's a little hard to see. It's spiritualhealthandwellness@gmail.com, or you can just visit me on the web. I have a Facebook page, or again, Patty's going to be uploading this webinar on her website sometime next week, so you'll be able to have access to that. And if you have questions, you can always email me. And with that being said, that is the end of my presentation. I told you it was short. There's so much information, but I didn't want to overload you. And I'm hoping that you all will be able to give me, to ask me questions. I'll do my very best to answer your questions. Well, thank you, and have a wonderful rest of the day.